For 5 years, nearly 800,000 undocumented young people have been able to live in the U.S. without constant fear of deportation. That's all thanks to DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. It was started by President Barack Obama in 2012. It allows young immigrants who came to the U.S. illegally as children to apply for a renewable 2-year visa. That allows them to work legally in the U.S. and saves them from deportation. So, who qualifies? Those who have been in the U.S. since 2007 and came before they turned 16, and those who were under the age of 31 before June 15, 2012, when DACA went into effect. Applicants must be in school, have a high school diploma, or be a military veteran, and they must have a mostly clean criminal record. It's important to note, the status doesn't put participants on a path to legal permanent residency or citizenship, but it does mean these immigrants can get things like driver's licenses, credit cards, and open bank accounts. A recent survey found that after being approved for DACA, 5% of recipients started their own businesses, and 16% bought a home for the first time. Ultimately, ending the program would remove 800,000 people from the U.S. workforce. And the left-leaning Center for American Progress estimates that if that happens, over the next decade, the economy could risk losing nearly $500 billion.
My name is Liz Dong. I'm an evangelical Christian. I'm a graduate student at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. I'm a Chinese raised in America, and I'm a recipient of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA. My undocumented status loomed over every aspect of my life like a dark cloud. It was in my darkest days wrestling with my status that I experienced God's love through His people most profoundly. After graduating in college with honors, I still could not work legally until the implementation of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which temporarily deferred deportation for individuals who came to the U.S. as minors who meet certain qualifications. Immigration is not a political issue. It is a human issue, a biblical issue. Most dreamers are just about American in every way except on paper. And if you think you didn't know an undocumented immigrant, you know at least one now. Under DACA, qualified individuals have been able to attain work permits, driver's licenses, and pursue higher education, allowing them to come out of the shadows, out of constant fear of deportation and separation from family, to lead productive lives and contribute more to their communities. Today, over 700,000 individuals have been approved for deferred action. DACA recipients, also known as Dreamers, are working as teachers, doctors, artists, and starting businesses as entrepreneurs and innovators. Canceling DACA, or letting it expire without permanent solution in place, will remove temporary legal status and work authorization for Dreamers. This would not only devastate the lives of hundreds of thousands of individuals who did not have a say in coming to America as children, but also harm the U.S. economy by removing these productive workers and consumers. One study has found that ending DACA would wipe away at least $400 billion from the U.S. GDP cumulatively over a decade. To punish hardworking, tax-paying immigrants who came into the U.S. as children is not smart fiscal policy, nor is it humane. We have to speak up. Please, reach out to your legislators to let them know that you support legal status for Dreamers and a more permanent, bipartisan solution on immigration from Congress. The time to act is now.
There will be no amnesty.
So-called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, known as DACA. It's an Obama administration executive action granting temporary legal status for immigrants who arrived in the U.S. as children.
Deferred Action program that we have, known as DACA. These are kids who were brought here by their parents. They did nothing wrong.
We will immediately terminate President Obama's 2 illegal executive amnesties.
If I didn't have DACA, I would not be able to continue practicing medicine. There are no exceptions. I'm here, the patients are here, they're sick. The day it is revoked, I have to take off my white coat. I'm supposed to stay under an 80-hour work week. picture of me and my mom the day before I graduated college, I think. My mother and father came from Venezuela, where there's a lot of economic distress and political distress, and they wanted a better future for me and for themselves. I was 7 years old, so we came here on a tourist visa. We overstayed the tourist visa. My mother is a babysitter and housekeeper. My father does odd jobs, worked construction. Right now, there's no path to legalization. I would like to believe that there are options. I can't think of any that are realistic other than doing what my parents do. I think about it for about 5 seconds. I find it a little unbearable to think about, and then I just forget about it because it just doesn't fit in my brain.
Although there had been undocumented students in various medical schools, a few here or there, we were the first medical school to change our admissions policy to actually welcome applications from students of DACA status. We don't want to turn back now. We want to get them down that path further and to try to make it happen.
It is a huge chasm of uncertainty in terms of, imagine being 3/4 of the way through a medical degree and then just having that come to a complete halt. Because a residency program cannot hire you if you don't have work authorization. It's a big moment, and we're all kind of holding our breath and just hoping that clearer heads prevail, and that really, I think it's a matter of justice and fairness.
Without DACA, I'm at risk of losing my loans. Then, there's the questions like, if I graduate, what now? But I'm determined to finish, whether it takes me 7 years or it takes me 10 years. My interest is in primary care because I grew up where most of my community didn't have access to health care.
There are 28 medical students, Madam President, at Loyola University Stritch School of Medicine in Chicago. If they lose their work permit, they have to drop out of medical school. What happens if DACA goes away? Well, obviously they're subject to deportation. And number two, no work permit. To have these doctors, these potential doctors, diverted from this ambition because of political negligence is unacceptable. Measure we call the Bridge Act. This is an effort by Senator Graham and myself to have a bipartisan answer to the question about what happens to these 800,000 and others like them.
Will the so-called dreamers who were brought here as minors, will they be deported?
They're called dreamers because that's the most sympathetic term. Yeah. And they came here to live in the shadows. So if we enforce the law and they live in the shadows, that's what they came here to do. See, I don't think we've thought through this very well. If the kids are innocent, the parents are guilty, we have to look at the parents.
Some people don't like me saying this, but sometimes working in a lab feels similar to working in a kitchen. You end up cleaning a lot of tubes and heating them in the autoclave, so kind of similar to an oven. And it makes me wonder, like all those people that were working in kitchens, like if you're given the chance, how many of those people would actually have excelled working in a lab? My parents have mostly worked either in the fields or in factories processing food. And right now, many of the discussions that are going on are going to the two extremes. We're going to deport all of them, or we're going to give special treatment to these very high achievers.
I came here in 1993. I have 2 kids and they were very young at that time. My son, he's a lawyer now. My daughter, Ima, she's in 3rd year of medical school. For me, their education was very important. During education, they didn't have any immigration status. Their father left country and he was the petitioner. So their cases got affected. One time, Ima said that I have been struggling, studying, but I don't know for what, because I don't see my future. I mean, I feel, honestly, I feel very bad, but for me, this is the country, and I love this country.
DACA students are immigrants that are likable or marketable to the general public, but framing so-called dreamers as being different from the rest. I don't think we are different. Because all immigrants are dreamers. We all came here because of the promise of the American dream.
Whether you were the target or even just a witness, in any encounter with ICE, you have rights.
Si está en una área pública y ICE se le acerca, también tiene derechos.
Regardless of your immigration status, if an ICE agent approaches you in public, before answering any questions, you can ask, "Am I free to go?"
Just keep asking until you get an answer.
Si le dice que sí, puede decirle, no quiero contestar a ninguna pregunta e irse.
En caso de que la gente diga no, usted puede utilizar su derecho y permanecer en silencio.
Sometimes it's hard to remain silent, so you can recite a phrase like,
"I don't want to answer your questions. I'd like to speak to a lawyer."
You can repeat this again and again, and you still don't have to answer their questions.
If ICE begins to search your pockets or belongings, say, "I do not consent to this search. Please stop."
If for any reason you're in a criminal court and ICE starts to arrest you, ask to speak to your lawyer and try to resolve your criminal case.
Recuerde, no importa dónde suceda, si ICE lo arresta, debe permanecer en silencio y pedir hablar con un abogado.
No comparta información de dónde nació, su estatus migratorio o algún récord criminal. Recuerde que toda esa información podría ser utilizada en su contra.
Never lie to ICE.
Instead, you can say, "I do not want to speak to you without a lawyer."
If ICE asks for your identification, you don't have to give them something that shows where you were born. You can give them something like a school ID or a municipal ID.
Do not hand over documents that show your place of birth. For example, a passport, expired visa, or a foreign ID.
Nunca mienta, nunca presente documentos falsos, nunca se resista al arresto cuando tenga una interacción con ICE.
Si alguien es detenido, recuerden documentar todos los hechos ocurridos, ya que ayudaría en un caso legal a los abogados.
You have the right to record an arrest, but be aware, officers are primarily concerned with their own safety, so don't do anything that would physically interfere with the arrest.